So the last two times were mostly speed-focused runs. This time it's going to be more about difficulty, trying to get in there, looking at the 4-cell difficulty, fighting an elite as your very first enemy. Yeah, that's nightmare mode all over. And you might be saying, wait a second, this isn't nightmare mode. The video said that it's supposed to be 3-cell difficulty. Oh, don't worry about that. There's some problems with 4-cell mode right now, which is why I eventually decided to crank her back down to extreme, expert, whatever 3-cell mode is called, I don't know. And yeah, as you can probably tell, I'm sure, post-commentary. Why do I keep switching back and forth? It's because I don't know. I don't really have any reason for that. Anyway, the real reason for this run is corrupted power. Yep. Alright, I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. I don't like corrupted power all that much. But first, so what does corrupted power do? Okay, you pop it, it gives you a damage per second DPS increase. So that whatever your primary weapon is, whether it's a bow, whether it's some sort of melee weapon, whatever, as long as it's not a skill, as long as it's not damage over time, you're going to be getting extra damage with it. And it's all going to be consistent because it's extra damage over time, it's not just flat damage. Used to be flat damage back when it was the damage buffer, but not anymore. It's a simple weapon. It's a very, very simple item. I mean, you use it, it's got a pretty sizable cooldown, but you just get extra damage for that. And really, a lot of the stuff that you're going to be getting in the game is going to be extra damage. Whether it's mutations, most of them just give you an extra DPS increase. Whether it's, synergies, that's also just extra DPS. The only thing is that it's really not that much DPS. And the thing is, the other thing is that it doesn't really get better over time. The base level that you get for extra damage, plus then your bonus for getting stats, is going to be what pretty much you're going to carry with you through the entire game because of the fact that it is a utility item. And in fact, that's one of the reasons why I decided to use that for a 4-cell run attempt here. Upgrading it, getting it later in the game, getting a corrupted power 12 or whatever, just gives you extra damage reduction, which is good. I mean, that's always appreciated. I like that a lot and everything. But that means that you really don't get that much damage off of it. Oh, yes, and it also increases for your damage by 30% for that amount of time, but you're already getting damage reduction with it, and really, it's 4-cell mode here is all about, at least at this point, not getting hit at all. Not worrying about how much damage you take. I gotta say that because this run was partially, almost mostly a survival run, what with corrupted power scaling off survival, I tried to mostly make it a brutality run because I was thinking, getting a nice, fast, good melee weapon would probably get more benefit from corrupted power than a slower survival weapon. I don't really have any reason for that. It just kind of felt right at the time. So pretty much what I did was I went primary for brutality and then secondaries for survival. So I get plenty of health throughout this entire run. I don't really worry too much about the actual HP value, mostly, more than getting hit and getting extra damage, or getting extra infection points, which is a much bigger issue in my mind. So taking an extra 30% damage, who cares? Whatever. It's not that big of a deal. At least at high level play, I don't know. I really think that a lot of the extra damage is more of a, well, that might kind of matter if it's the tipping point. For example, with colorless items that you get from cursed chests, you get 20% extra damage. But in a lot of cases, if the colorless item is good, who cares? That 20% extra damage isn't that much compared to an excellent primary weapon that, doesn't... An excellent primary weapon, like a pyrotechnics if you're running survival or something like that. I wouldn't mind taking an extra 20% damage at all, is what I'm saying. And similarly with this, if it did a lot of extra damage, I'd say that taking 30% extra damage during that time, whatever. Probably wouldn't be taking damage anyway because you kill an enemy too quickly. But that's not really the case. And although that doesn't really factor into it, I just think the fact that it has such a long cooldown time, and it takes up a slot by itself, just non-stop elite enemies here, isn't it? Just, man. So yeah, it takes up a slot, it has a pretty sizable cooldown. I don't know, I just don't think it's that good. And really, I think that the reason for that is that it is a pretty old type weapon. It's been in the game forever. It's been in here. It's been in Dead Cells since, you know, update 0. Dead Cells, nothing, because it didn't have any updates yet. And I think the idea that, hey, you're going to get a little extra damage and also at that point in time it was just a flat damage increase, so if you were using a fast weapon like a Assassin's Dagger or especially an Electric Whip, it became like a ×4 damage increaser, just crazy good. But anyway, after they changed it up to being something reasonable, it was just a pretty milquetoast sort of thing. I think that if this item was created today, it would probably apply a mark to enemies. Maybe every enemy on the screen, maybe every enemy in a big radius, like the Blood Shield, or even the Hokuto's Bow sort of radius instead. Because it would be effectively the same thing, an extra damage increase. But then you also get extra damage on damage over time stuff. You also get the mark propagation, all that sort of stuff. As of right now, it's just, yeah, more damage at kind of a hefty cost. Well, anyway, there is also something else that it does, and I don't think this quite makes up for it, but it does definitely help kind of massage some of the problems that this weapon has. And that's the fact that being a power, you get a pretty robust set of affixes that you can possibly have with it, making this item something of a jack of all trades. Not only does it increase your damage, give you a little damage reduction, it can give you a poison cloud when you activate it, which will let you get it poison increasing, or anytime you get an affix that increases damage on poison targets would be good. Yeah, speaking of colorless items where taking that extra 20% is totally worth it. Yeah, War Spear. Always good for high cell difficulties because of the amount of extra damage you get fighting multiple enemies, which on high cell difficulties, absolutely that's the case. But yeah, it can light things on fire, it can throw down oil, even it can get one of the, best, I would say most novel sort of affixes that have been included in the Baguette update now, the electrocutes enemies around you, which is the perfect anti-air sort of mechanic that you can possibly think of. For a few seconds, enemies that are within a pretty close radius will get electrocuted, dealing a small amount of damage and a high amount of stun. It's actually really good for taking out like kamikaze bats or stunning any... Oh my god, that was so close to me dying there. Holy crap. Well, anyway, so you can pretty much tailor that, especially with the Clandestine Forge, to whatever you need to make synergies possible. Now, here's the thing, like the Toxic Cloud or whatever is never going to, releasing a Toxic Cloud when you use it, never going to be as good as the actual Toxic Cloud item. Fire is never going to be as good as a Flame Grenade. All that sort of stuff. Oh, yes, and also I didn't mention that War Spear gets plus 100% on burning target, and I think every time I take a step every time I roll, yeah, that's right, I get burning on the ground, so real good synergy there, too. But yeah, so it's really just for setting up synergies, and that's it. And I think the idea that that's what it's supposed to do is also proven by its legendary version, which always has an affix that increases your speed, gives you a little bit of speed buff when you use it. Meaning that it's kind of a jack of all trades sort of item, with that trade being damage. And yeah, that's good, but I would much rather have something that specializes, that gives me a lot of other stuff, and not just, potentially setting up synergies. I guess damage reduction, the ability to get an extra survival on there could be good. Nah, I don't like it as much as a lot of other skills. I think a lot of other skills are better in that slot rather than taking corrupted power. But you know what? That's what this run's all about. Trying to figure out, hey, do I like it more than I think? Spoiler, no. But, you know, why not check it out anyway? So anyway, yeah, I don't know. It's fine, I guess. It's just not... I think it could use a rework, and I think that maybe getting a... I mean, maybe not even a rework, just like a replacement with something else. Because let's be honest, what it looks like right now, the icon, usually you get a good idea of what an item is by its icon. This one is so... Well, there's literally text on it. It's so weird and nonsensical that you could probably replace it with something else and make it make total sense in context. Well, anyway, so yeah, I think that it's probably best if you're working with a survival build where you don't really have a whole lot of options for really good skills, but I don't know, if you're also having problems getting synergies with other stuff, it can also work. Hard to say. Well, anyway, now that I've got, what, 4 points of infection right now? So, here's the issue with 4-cell mode right now. One, it's pretty much the only mode that has you get any, you know, decent amount of gold. With the gold nurse that they got, it works out super well for 4-cell mode, where you're fighting a lot of elites, getting a lot of gold, which makes me think that Motion Twin may have just kind of over-tuned it for high cell difficulty at this point in time. Which, you know, not the worst thing, because I was even kind of talking about in the last episode, you know, how much attention does higher cell difficulty actually get. But the other and more important thing is, yeah, you see that my infection level did not actually get reduced there? I got a message that said it was reduced. I definitely looked and saw that, yes, that was the one that was not infected. There's always at least one guaranteed in a food shop. That was almost the entire reason why I came here. Yeah, infection isn't going down when you eat food, which means that the only way that you're going to reduce infection is, one, dying and getting brought back to life by the YOLO mutation, or 2, using your potion. So if you take too much damage in 4-cell mode right now, you're probably going to be pretty low on potioning, which is an issue. Hey, the infection level's high. Great stuff. Just what I was talking about. Impaler, not only a little bit more in line, it also has a real good synergy with the item that I got right here, the shove shield that I was using, because you can push an enemy into a wall and then start to impale them. It's also a brutality-focused weapon, so it's a lot faster, scales with just about anything. It's legendary, so it has a good affix with it. I forgot which one it is. You know what? I can actually look that up right now. See, I told you there was some good stuff about being able to do post-commentary here. Impaler. Run speed on critical, so you get extra speed upon doing a critical attack. Well, that's cool. I mean, it's not the best, but I would have just expected like the plus 20% on critical damage. Whatever, it doesn't matter. You know, I'll be perfectly honest. I did not realize that legendary items had specific affixes to them until I looked it up on the wiki. Probably would have been useful considering the legendary weapons have been around for a while, but and you can re-roll those away that I found out, which is too bad because I was kind of hoping that they would be. They're usually good enough that you want them always with the item. But if you don't have a very good roll otherwise, or you have, you know, 2 times damage and restores the 1% health, it's like, well, you're kind of out of luck. See, there's that good synergy that I was talking about. And also, you can see with corrupted power there, man, that electrocute is so good. I really, really like that ability. I would almost take a, well, I don't know if I would take a item. Also, that was some real bad damage. Damn. I don't know if I would take an item that specifically only does the electrocute stuff, but it is good enough that I would probably take that over, I don't know. Still didn't decrease it. Infection with sickness reduced. It's so weird that it's just called sickness. Like, I don't know if I'm down with that name. Get it? Anyway. Yeah, that really does kind of mess up a lot of what I'm doing here. Well, you know, if I had a decent enough run, it could have been okay, but I don't know. Firebomb could be alright, but I think that if you're running a melee-focused... You know, one of the things that I like doing when it comes to runs, at least runs right now, is getting a lot of passive damage and a lot of diversified damage. And although that does kind of fulfill diversified and passive, this really is supposed to be a run about, you know, using the melee weapon. So that definitely wouldn't be the primary source of damage. I think it's more worthwhile to keep the ice grenade then, because ice grenade is much friendlier to melee than the flame grenade is, which, you know, is kind of nice and also kind of sad because I could have probably replaced corruptive power with it. I'm just saying. Acceptance still doing a lot of work. God, that is a good mutation. Like I said, I'm not super worried about getting a lot of healing, which is why I didn't really think of taking alienation or anything like that. But the acceptance, just to make sure that I don't accidentally get killed by curses, which, these days I feel like it's either curses or getting killed in the castle is like the #1 cause of death for me. Or just general carelessness, but you know, hey, that's been true since the dawn of time, so what are you gonna do? And thankfully being in 4-cell mode here, I seriously considered that, but then I saw that 1% healing. Nah. Especially because, you know, it is a legendary weapon, and it's a pretty good one for the build I'm working with. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, acceptance. I said that I wanted it to be like part of my toolkit. Hey, Toxic Cloud, look at that. This is I was talking about you. Yeah, I know I said I wanted acceptance to be part of my toolkit, and I think that it is probably going to be in the future, although I still really should be trying to diversify up the damage. Or not the damage, diversify up my general toolkit for mutations. I know I said I was going to do that, and I still haven't really been doing it. I gotta do that already. Well, I did take Vengeance this time, which I think, aside from getting the sickness, I don't take too much damage from getting hit, so it's actually a pretty sizable increase if the circumstance does come up. I don't know. Oh yes, and I said before that taking that hitting the flask reduces your infection to 0. I think it actually only takes off 5 infection points, so not quite as overpowered as I thought it was, but hey, you know, that's still pretty good. And if I can't reduce infection by eating food, what I can do is I did not even see that cannibal there. Oh man, that could have been bad. But yeah, if I can't reduce it by food, what I can reduce it by is grabbing flask charges. And indeed, yep, you can see I got 1 point left. Unfortunately, that does really reduce my ability to, you know, reroll and upgrade and buy stuff in shops. But I think that for the most part, I'm okay with what I'm rolling with right now. Like I said, these are utility weapons. They don't get much better if you get them late in the game versus early in the game. I suppose you also do get more affixes with them, but how many affixes do you really need, you know? Whatever. Point is, I should be okay for right now for items. Maybe want to replace the shield eventually, but it also does have good synergy right now. Yep. I mean, it's a little bit better, not too much better. Frozen, I believe, is causing bleed right now. I don't actually remember, and I wasn't looking. Whoops. So it's a decent it's a decent pickup, I think. Obviously, the obvious one to take would be the obvious mutation to take would have been reduced cooldown, either the reduced cooldown from tactics or the reduced bomb cooldown, but I also take those all the time, forever, always. So trying to at least change it up a little bit here. Oof, it is really frustrating. I mean, I suppose there is the fire and the oil and everything. Oh yeah, no, I don't actually get bleed with that. However, I do light enemies on fire if I parry them, and I do get, you know, the poison and everything from using corrupted power, so there's some stuff. It's like, even with the shelf shield, you can't really push the incomplete, or the caretaker around into walls to try to get that good critical damage, but I mean, yeah. Yeah, extra careful in this battle. I really do not want to be getting any more sickness points here. And, well, speak of the devil. And you can see the amount of damage I took from the actual hit there. It's real negligible because I have a huge amount of damage reduction and also pretty decent stats right now. 7 and 13, or 13 and 7 for brutality and survival, respectively. It ain't too shabby, but that's not what I'm worried about. It's all about the Benjamins and infection points. Ah, well, Caretaker's down pretty easily. And the legendary is... Yep! Oh, yeah. Look, Impaler was doing me real nice, but Symmetrical Lance, it's such a good item, and I love it, and I love the animation, and I love its critical attack. I mean, it's the same sort of critical as you get using the... Wow, that was really close. 2 seconds. It's the same sort of critical attack that you get using the War Spear, just a little different, a little less range, a little more... You also get to swing behind you. You know, some unique stuff. Also, some affixes that I really got to get rid of there. But here's also when I feel like, oh man, I really could have just gone with a survival build. Because the only thing that's really benefiting from brutality right now is the ice grenade, and yeah, does that even come close to mattering at all? Nah, I don't know. So I was hitting up Misty Crossing here with the idea that, okay, so it wasn't reducing the infection the first couple times, maybe it'll do so in this shop, or maybe it's just doing it, I need to go through a door or something and I just wasn't noticing it, or... I was getting desperate is what I'm getting at here. Also, one of the nice things about this mode is, well, one of the... Nope, did not work, and going through the door, did not work. Great. But yeah, one of the nice things, or one of the small kindnesses they give you when it comes to infection is that trash mobs, you know, enemies that other enemies summon, whether it's the flying biters from, or whether it's the corpse worms from these infested corpses, or flying biters from the corpses in the graveyard, or the flying biters from the mechanical spiders is the enemy. Or slimelings in the ossuary, especially. I believe that's the first time I noticed that. They do not increase the infection counter, which is good. It's a lot like traps, how that doesn't... It's just when you get hit by a regular enemy. Pretty much if it's an enemy that would reduce curse on you, it will also give you infection points when it hits you, in whatever way. Here especially because, oh boy, those phases can be annoying, having a decently leveled up and... Well, I suppose I didn't really decrease the cooldown at all, but having a good ice grenade can really be useful. Hey, get out of here. I already rejected, like, the king of your weapon type. For the king's hand of weapon types. Oh, man. So, yeah, it's rough going, and even though, yes, I still can reduce infection by buying potion charges in the upcoming food shop, it's like, That's really, really expensive. I don't know if it's the best idea. Look at that damage. Took out an elite pirate captain like it was nothing. Unfortunately, don't have the necklace anymore that gives me the increased damage on burning, or that gives me the puts down burning when dodging. That almost would have been worth taking just by itself. Also, get in there. Okay, fine. Then I won't do that. Jeez. Usually it works out a lot easier than that. What can I say? You know, just I'll take the scenic route. Whatever. I don't even care. I will do that cool jump, though. Recently bought Celeste. Gonna be looking forward to doing that a lot. Maybe do a series on it. Could be fun. You know, I'm a big fan of Matt Thorson ever since... not Jumper. I wasn't there for Jumper, but I was there for an Untitled story. I mean, pretty much I'm just... You know, really the deciding factor is, am I good enough at that game that I would want to make a video of it? 'Cause I'm struggling. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Anyway. I think this is just the regular shop. You know, this is also about the time when upgrading the shield would be good, but this is also technically more of a survival weapon than a brutality weapon. The way I usually see weaponry is pretty much if it scales with survival, you should probably build to survival. Because here's the thing, unless you're working towards some specific mutation, and me, I like to usually use the colorless mutations anyway. That building a skill is going to be plus 15% damage regardless of what you're taking. So you might as well take the one that gives you the most health if you're given a choice. So pretty much, if you're working with a colorless legendary weapon, you might as well be building survival if you've been building survival. If you're working with something that scales with survival, build survival. And then brutality, and then tactics if, you know, usually for things that only scale with tactics. And it all depends on what you're using, what the build you're going for, what your primary weapon is going to be, or primary damage source, or whatever. But here, it's like, this is a run where I've been building brutality, and I probably should have been building survival. Again, not that that really matters because of the infection, but, you know. Whatever. Thankfully, it doesn't... Even if this was a regular... symmetrical lance, it would still scale with brutality anyway. But, you know, it's still not the most ideal. I probably would have taken, like, a spiteful sword back there in that shop. Otherwise, it's... You know. Probably a better choice overall. I think that if you're building brutality, you should take a fast melee weapon and leave slower weapons like the symmetrical lance for what do you call it? Brutality runs. Yeah, it looks like the... Yeah, I didn't notice. I thought I was getting infected more by eating infected food, but it looks like that didn't... No, wait, that's still reduced infection. I think you do still get infected more by eating infected food. Also, that was really close to getting hit by a cannonball there. It's a good thing that I was about to teleport away. Yeah, you do get infected more. You just don't get the infection reduction, which is ridiculous. It's why I probably would have done this on 4-cell mode, because, like, I would have a lot more money because I wouldn't need to buy that flask charge earlier, because I have gotten a lot of clean food here. You know what? I'm just griping for the sake of griping. Whatever. Probably could have easily gone the tomb too, but clock tower's fine. I haven't been to the clock tower in a little bit. I've only been to the fog fjord a little too much lately, but I'll go to the sewers next time. Plus 100% on frozen target's pretty good. I mean, I've already said that freezing... Yeah, the frustrating thing is that I just cannot get rid of, like, it takes extra damage affix on there. So I'm settling for poisons enemies. Sure, whatever. Good enough. That's extra damage. But yeah, taking a the freezing is the one time. This is pretty much the one time that I think the freezing affix is really good. You know, extra damage on a frozen target. When you're using survival, when you're doing really weapons that do really huge hits, and you know, really huge hits, and a single really huge hit is what I'm saying. Because then when you knock the enemy out of being frozen, you've already done a lot of damage, all that sort of deal. Yep. Dang. Now getting a little high on infection. Don't like that. Nutcracker's just not a good weapon. Great stuff. And hey, it might not be a better necklace, but it does have +3 to brutality, so that's good enough as far as I'm concerned. Man, Ice Grenade really saved me, and great. I rarely get hit by trackers anymore. Why am I doing it now? Ugh. Yeah, Ice Grenade really coming in the clutch there, though. And it's why, even though this is something that I found really near the very start of the game, I'm still using it. I mean, that's the power of utility weapons. They're good at just about any level. Oh, man. You know, I'll say this. I am fighting a lot of enemies here, and that's actually been something I've been thinking about. Northern Lion has been starting up his Dead Cells series lately, and one of the things he's been struggling with is the idea that you don't need to fight every single enemy in the game, and really, I would suggest that you don't, you know, for a couple reasons. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of things where the game is designed to go fast with time doors. And, you know, in general, you don't get too many rewards for them. But, I mean, it's like pretty much, I've been kind of like going through, so what is the deal with that? Like, what is the deal with how enemies work in this game that you don't want to be fighting them all the time? Because here's the thing, I'm fighting a lot of enemies here, but I'm also not really going very slow. It's only been a half hour, and this is 4-cell mode. A run where you really want to take it slow if you can. So, like, what's the deal? Also, this would be probably a pretty good one to take, but I'm not building tactics, and survival's not as good, so goodbye. Also, come on, symmetrical lens is great. But yeah, like, the heart of what the deal with fighting enemies in this game, I think, is... Well, what it really comes down to is it comes down to, like, how enemies actually work in this game. Alright, so basically, you don't need to fight enemies in this game. Like, that's kind of a holdover from the old Castlevania, Metroid games, whatever, that you know, this game patterns after a lot, with the whole exploration and, well, again, and like, nothing really blocking you from going anywhere, aside from maybe an ability or two. Ow. So it's like every single one of these enemies is more of an obstacle than like an actual enemy to fight. It's as good as like the combat in this game is and everything, and as well as it gets exploited when you get into boss battles, when you're fighting a single enemy, they usually only have like one thing they can do. For example, the Bombardier there just shoots out a bomb. Or the Trackers there, they can roll behind you, or they can hit you from the front. Cannibals have a 3-hit combo that they do when you're far away from them, and they throw down a bomb if you're close to them. I mean, the idea with fighting enemies is not so much to make them, like, an epic battle for all time or whatever. It's more that kind of combining these different abilities together and then putting them as an obstacle in front of you is the challenge of the game. Not like trying to defeat them. And indeed, it's like defeating them, it gets rid of them forever. It is a permanent CC. They're gone. They are off the playing table when you kill them. So that's great if you need to like go back through levels, but you generally don't need to. They don't drop too much. Like, they drop a small amount of money and cells, and as good as cells are, they're not that good. And they might drop an item or whatever, but whatever. In general, I'd say you're actually, for cells, you're actually better off just going to get time doors for that sort of thing. But the thing is, it's like, so unless they're being particularly dangerous to you, and unless you really don't need to go out of your way at all to kill them, the only real thing that I would say that's substantially that you get from enemies, and plus it's like, again, not very satisfying to fight one-on-one, maybe as a group, but, you know, it's not like you're getting epic battles against a single tracker or whatever. So, like, the main thing that you want to kill them for is, what? The speed buff. And how does the speed buff work? Well, once you get it, you have to kill X amount of enemies, and once you kill X amount of enemies, you just immediately get the speed buff, and you can continue killing enemies to keep it up, or it goes away over time. So, you know, there's also a level of you have to be speedy with the buff, too. So, you know, the other things are useful, especially like not getting killed by enemies, but, you know, killing enemies also tends to put you in some danger too, so there's a trade-off either way. Pretty much the way I see it is that, aside from being convenient, you know, pretty much like, if killing an enemy is convenient, you should be killing them. If killing an enemy is a danger to your life, you should be killing them. If you need them to get the speed buff up, and that's almost more of a convenience thing along with that. Pretty standard sort of assassin fight, just saying right now. Getting a lot of work out of that shield too, which is pretty cool. So like pretty much the way that I see it is that, yeah, enemies are obstacles. However, you do get stuff for killing them. So pretty much you should be killing them if they're a danger to you, if it's convenient for you to do so, and if, you know, you don't have to go, like, you need to keep that speed buff up. And the speed buff is pretty much kind of works with being convenient. Like, killing enemies is not necessary, but it does fulfill a lot of roles in the game. It ultimately fits in a lot with how you go fast in the game. By killing enemies, you continue to go very fast, and so you should kill them if they're in your way, and you can, and it's easy to do so, and it's quick to do so. And I think that kind of lies at the heart of like what it is. You're not supposed to avoid all the enemies because there's no point in killing them. You're just supposed to utilize all of your tools to kill them quickly and conveniently. I think that ultimately a lot of the things with Dead Cells is that you want to keep constant forward momentum. I think the speed buff at one point was even called, like, flow, and I think that kind of describes a lot of how combat should be in this game. You shouldn't go out of your way to avoid enemies, but you also shouldn't go out of your way to fight enemies. You fight them when you can. It's like, think of a game like, I don't know, a river or something. Like, when you come across an obstacle in a river, water flows around it. I'm waiting for the ice grenade to get up here so for the best chance of survival. Yeah, it's like the water goes around obstacles. It doesn't seek them out, but it also doesn't actively avoid them. And I think that that's kind of how this game goes. You gotta really reach like a zen state of flowing to the next part, to the next obstacle, to the next area that you need to get to. And I hope that makes any amount of sense at all, because I have no idea. I'm just making this up on the spot. Well, anyway, oh boy, it's a frontline shield being dropped by the twin tracker fight. Great stuff. Always super good in this mode where it's almost entirely useless due to the sickness. Blocking damage doesn't matter at all. You can't take any damage if you want to stay clean. But aside from that, it's like that's also probably one of the easier fights here. Even though there's two of them, I have really good CC. I have some pretty good damage off of the symmetrical lance here. You know, overall, it's like that's probably one of the easier ones. Obviously, easiest one is always going to be the Thorny fight. And I think that for this particular build, the hardest one is going to be the Alchemic Laboratory here, going up against the Elite Slasher fight, which is, even at the time, I was thinking, I don't know about this. And something to note here, whoops, making him slowed is making him real unpredictable, and I died. That's a castle for you. I really gotta stop being so overconfident. That is the second time that it's getting me killed in these last couple videos here. Going after the Thorny in that previous episode. Jeez. It's like I would have, and I was right at the exit too. All right. Similar sort of build as last time. Shield, primary survival scaling weapon, shovel this time. And this time I'm actually building survival instead of going for brutality, which, come on. Also being on 3 cell mode means that I don't have to worry about infection in general, which is great. But yeah, survival main hand, shield offhand, obviously corrupted power because that's the run, and a legendary fire grenade, which is actually very, very good because what that does is it spreads oil as you throw it, which means that you automatically get like fully oiled up grenades along with you get the fully oiled up burn damage along with doing regular burn damage. So that lasts longer and does more damage. Of course, as you might notice here, I'm kind of eschewing that for using the shield. Mostly because it had been some time since I used the shield, and I have, what, 28 survival right now, giving me just ungodly damage with this shield that already does a lot of damage. So, I may have been having a little too much fun parrying every single enemy here. Pretty much going entirely against the whole idea of killing enemies when it's convenient and fits into what you're already doing. But at the same time, hey, it's been a little while since I've used shields to their maximum, like, usefulness here, so, forgive me. Other than that, also, it's a lot more standard of a loadout here. Though you get to finally see Spiteful for real, the mutation that gives you extra damage when you parry back a projectile, which doesn't even matter since I think even if I didn't have that, at 29 survival and a pretty late game shield, that's in all likelihood going to be killing an enemy regardless of if I had that mutation or not. I mean, for God's sake, it's one-shotting Guardian Knights, which are maybe next to Golems, some of the well, actually, I don't even know if Golems are all that tanky, but Guardian Knights certainly are. Hey, round 2. Okay, come on. This is that stun that I was talking about with the electrocutes enemies. But there you go. Revenge achieved. Yeah, these enemies are so incredibly tanky. To see them taken out by a parry, no less, is... it feels pretty good, not gonna lie. Shovel's also pretty decent, a pretty decent option for the upcoming fight. I believe that it has plus 100% on burning target, which works well with the grenade there, and then it can also reflect back a lot, you know, the bombs that the hand throws out, which is good, but I don't think it's super important comparatively. But either way, having it here is a much faster sort of melee weapon than even the symmetrical lance was, and that's a decently fast one. But this one is actually a little bit more in line with the whole idea of using a... I mean, hell, it took a while even for the shovel to become a survival scaling weapon. So that kind of shows you how close it was to being a brutality only one for a while there. Basically, it fits in line with what I was originally wanting to do, is what I'm saying. Oh. I don't have to worry about infection anymore, which is good because I've been hit a lot, but that doesn't mean that I want to get hit by those guys. Although really, again, building survival, especially 30 survival nearly, oh, that would actually be super good, and if I didn't have to have corrupted power, I probably would have taken that in place of it. Because you can get some really good damage on the hand. He's not super mobile. No, I'm not fighting not going into the mortuary this time because I lose out on a lot of damage by not being able to use my flame grenade in there. So it would be great if I didn't lose another run, is what I guess I'm saying. You know, this probably would have been the ideal time to test if Corrupted Power works with a parry. I assume it does. But also at the same time, I don't think I can kill enemies in less than one hit. Man, across a gap. I think that the next run may actually be, hey, that's an even 30 survival. Hooray! But yeah, I think the next run might actually be a shield-focused one, because it's been a little while. You know what? Maybe even spiked shield. That could be cool. And good. This is the end here. Now, certainly the hand is not the easiest guy to parry, but again, this is not supposed to be a shield-based run anyway, so what am I talking about? I could probably reroll something, but nah. Spiteful, still pretty good. I mean, it'll be good against the elite enemies, and if I do happen to get a hit on, or a parry on one of the bombs, that could also be decent. And, of course, getting the trap damage reduction, Tough Skin, or Tough Nut, yeah, I forgot it didn't have a good name, it had a stupid name. Is always useful for dealing with those horrible, horrible spike pits around the arena. Yeah, you can see you get a really huge coverage with the flame grenade when it spits out oil like that. It's actually pretty much a combination of like the oil grenade and fire grenade, which is fine by me. And there I tried parrying some of them back because I'm like, oh, they get spiteful. Right, maybe not the best idea. Ah. The hand is still a tough guy, even if hand is still pretty tough, even if you have a really good, very tanky run here. It's, well, also it would help if I had the parry timing down on this guy too. But what are you gonna do? And oh, come on. Yeah, it's way more worth it to just use the shovel there. Yeah, parry, parry, parry. There you go. That's how you do it. Money for nothing, etc. Ah, oh, nah. Well, whatever. I mean, again, I don't really think this run changed my mind on Corrupted Power or anything like that, but you know, it was worth giving another chance. I mean, it's an item that I have not used for a while, but I don't think the damage increase just isn't enough to really justify using it, in my opinion. Oh, well, they can't all be winners.